Hey everybody, Tony D and Little Joan here with your final hot take of the evening. A Hollywoke hot take, just little more tidbits. SNL returns with Rudy Giuliani and his witness contesting the election. This would probably be hilarious to their audience if their audience had seen the witness. If the regular media had covered this and didn't just cover the wacky parts, you know? Because quite frankly, it's the regular media that was trying to squeeze the laughs out of it. And SNL, it's amazing what's happened to Saturday Night Live. When I saw Saturday Night Live as a kid on television, it was mind blowing. It was mind blowing because there was nothing like it on TV at the time. And it wasn't the newest thing in the world, but man, it broke all the barriers at that era, in that era, you know? And now it's just so subservient to this kind of stuff, you know? It's just, it's all politics, it's all news, and it's all the Democrats. It's all one side. It's another reason that comedy is just being killed by this polarization. You know, there's no shared reality anymore. So this, for people like myself and Trump supporters, you just feel like these people just constantly attack you. So what fun is that? It's one thing to get teased about your side, but when you know and can see that it's just constant jokes at your expense, at some point you just turn it off. The original Saturday Night Live was not that like that at all. They would do fun stuff that was fun for everybody. Yeah, they did some politics, but it was kind of like, it was a different time. When the show first came out, I believe Gerald Ford was president, and Chevy Chase would do an imitation of Gerald Ford, and his one redeeming trait, which we all knew at the time, was Gerald Ford was incredibly clumsy. He had fallen down a flight of steps coming off of Air Force one time, and a few other times he tripped. So Chevy Chase would not wear any makeup. He would not do any kind of voice. He was just Chevy Chase. And he would just come out and say, "Hi, I'm Gerald Ford." And then no matter what, at some point in the sketch, he would just take a huge pratfall and just like knock over everything on the set, no matter what he was doing. So like one time he was just putting the star on the Christmas tree, and of course he fell into the tree and knocked everything over and just made a complete mess. And it's so funny, just on a very basic level. You didn't see it as an attack against Republicans because Gerald Ford was a Republican. It was a very human kind of foible that Gerald Ford had. He was just clumsy. And, it wasn't like they were hammering us with politics or anything like that. Just silly, fun stuff. And the only stuff that got, super political in the early days was stuff. They did stuff about race. They did some edgy stuff, stuff about what was happening at that time. And, a lot of it was commercial parodies, which has been just done to death on the show. There's so many bits that now I see them on the show when I tune in once in a while, and it's just like, they're still doing this. How many years has this show been on? It's been on for over 30 years. Are they coming up to 40 yet? I don't even know. When did it start? 72? I guess they're over 40. Over 40? Are they coming up to 50? And then you look, and it's like, look at the makeup on, what's her face? I can't think of her name. Kate McKinnon on the right. That's Kate McKinnon on the right doing Rudy Giuliani. Who's on the left? Oh, Cecilia Strong. I don't even know her. And, Jesus. That's amazing makeup. Is it an amazing sketch? It's like the makeup is so amazing, it's almost too much. You know, it almost overwhelms the sketch. In my view, I mean, I don't even know what the sketch was about. I'm sure it was just making fun of Rudy and the crazy drunk witness, but and you could argue, you're just being sensitive because you support all this, and maybe I am, but it just seems to me that it was a lot more fun when it was a lot lower budget, and it felt more creative. It felt riskier and edgier. Now it just feels. I mean, this is easy. This is easy. What would be hard is making fun of some of those woke idiots out west, making fun of some of the very people who sit in your audience and making them uncomfortable. And that used to happen in the early days. It really did. I mean, sometimes they'd do a sketch and you'd hear the laughs, and they were uncomfortable. And that's rare now. I think the last time it got uncomfortable was maybe when Dave Chappelle hosted. That was a good episode. Or Louis C.K. Even Chris Rock. And I think Dave Chappelle made an appearance when Chris Rock was on, or vice versa, I forget. When they did that one about Trump winning. It was a really good sketch. But it's rare. It's rare. It seems to be these days. It seems that Saturday Night Live now is just there. And if you have a really good guest, it's a really good show. And if you don't, it used to be the opposite. Like, the cast was amazing, and they used to have the craziest obscure guest, you know. They had Christopher Lee was a guest on the show. Frank Zappa was a guest on the show back in the day. So, yeah, I mean, politics is just killing comedy. Ron Perlman continues to hate Republicans and say big, nasty words on Twitter and stuff about Trump. It's weird. It's gotten weird. It's like it feels desperate at this point. You know, Perlman's not a young guy, and you know, these sort of pseudo threats to the president and Republicans. I guess people like it. I just find it like, I get it, whatever, dude. Matthew McConaughey calls out arrogant far left who condescend and patronize conservatives. Yeah, I think McConaughey is a conservative. But like a lot of conservatives in Hollywood, he sort of kept it on the down low. And now he's sort of slowly, you know, testing the waters. But yeah, I mean, you know, I always thought McConaughey was kind of a weirdo, but a good actor. You know, he's done some pretty awesome movies and TV shows, I'll say that. And he's at least sort of tried to be a smarter guy. I mean, in the beginning, it just seemed like he was just another pretty face, but now it seems like, you know, you got him and Russell Brand doing a chat, and he's done some chats with some other people. He did this thing with where he had some kind of whiskey sponsorship, and he was doing like a talk show. I think he's trying to transition into something other than the movies because, you know, movies are dying. So I think it's interesting. I think he's become more interesting. So Trevor Noah, Democrats' beer virus hypocrisy is even worse than the anti-maskers. Thank you for acknowledging it. Thank you, Trevor Noah, for acknowledging it. Bravo. Perhaps we're finally getting a little acknowledgement from the Hollywoke people that, yes, Jesus, it's just terrible. I mean, you know, the Democrats are like, they're insane. They're absolutely insane now. I mean, I don't know how much more they could disappoint people at this point. You know, and then the weird pledge that the three presidents made to take the vaccine before anybody else. Does anybody believe for a second that these three guys would actually do that? I don't. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. But you know, it's good. It's finally being acknowledged. I think that's probably because Trevor Noah is not American, and you know, maybe he's pushing back a little bit. He's a little bit outside of all this and saying, hey, come on. You know, but I always said Trevor Noah is such a weird choice to replace to be the host of the Daily Show, and now that he's doing everything from his, I don't know, his weird apartment or whatever, it's just not the show. It's not the show anymore. Not the Daily Show I remember. And finally, sad news: Squiggy is dead. Yeah. Dies at 73 after a decades-long battle with multiple sclerosis. If you don't remember Squiggy, he was hilarious. He was on Laverne and Shirley back in the day, and he was a funny character actor. I mean, Squiggy being his most popular sort of character. He was in a few other things, but mostly it was Squiggy. And Laverne and Shirley, like, that was a show that lasted many seasons. They did Laverne and Shirley, and then they did like Laverne and Shirley in the 60s, because like it was Happy Days, and then there was all these spin-offs from Happy Days. Mork and Mindy was a spin-off. And then Laverne and Shirley was a spin-off. Was there other spin-offs? I think there were. But then Lenny and Squiggy were, and Michael McKean was Lenny, and he was Squiggy. Lenny and Squiggy were two of the characters, two of the supporting characters on the show. And then Laverne and Shirley moved to L.A. towards the end of the run, and then Lenny and Squiggy eventually follow him out there, I think. Yeah, it's a shame. He was very funny. He made a very funny appearance on The Simpsons as Squiggy, which was great too. So I can't help but smile when I see him, because he was such a funny guy. They did songs on Laverne and Shirley, Lenny and Squiggy, and now that I know Michael McKean was, he eventually went on to Spinal Tap, but it was Squiggy was the leader of the two. Lenny was his sidekick, so it was really fun to watch them work, because Michael McKean was really good at being that supporting guy, and they did they had a band called the Squig Tones. It was like a 50s band, and it was fun. He was just a funny guy, so it's a shame. But 73, it's not a bad run. Not a bad run. It's a shame he had multiple sclerosis, though. That's rough. But I always smile when I think of him. It's even though he's passed, and that's sad. But I always smile when I think of Squiggy and the Squig Tones.